Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you a much improved version of the fully automatic rooted dirt farm, which is also the basis for the automatic mud farm. So some numbers first. Instead of roughly 100 bone meal to get one rooted dirt, we're down to 2.6 bone meal for one rooted dirt, so compared to the old version. And we're also getting 500 rooted dirt per hour now. Let's take a look at the farm first before we break it down. So we push in some stone, which then gets converted into moss. And then on top, grass, moss carpet, and azalea would generate. We flush away the moss carpet and the grass. Only the azalea is left over. It's getting bone mealed. We get a tree and dirt below. And then with the new incoming stone, the dirt is getting pushed out here into a blast chamber. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. I want to explain how this farm works. So the problem with the old farm was that we didn't really check if we would generate moss carpet, azalea bush, or some grass. We bone mealed it anyway, and that's where most of the loss came from. Because if you bone meal grass while there's a block above, then you waste a lot of bone meal. So you always would waste the bone meal, but get nothing out of it. And the chance to get an azalea bush is also rather low. I think it's around 5%. So yeah, we really lost a lot of bone meal with the old farm. Okay, now how do we actually sort out or get rid of the grass and the moss carpet without destroying the azalea? Well, the trick is something that To discovered. We can use a waterlogged stair. So usually water flushes away azalea, as you can see here. But if you have either a slab or waterlogged stair, it doesn't flow over. So the idea is basically the bottom half here is dry, and then the top half with the water, is neighboring the top half of the azalea, which is basically also like half a block, so the water can't flow in there. So this would, of course, only work with the slab or a stair. If you would try it with a trapdoor instead, then it still would get flushed over. We can show it real quick. Would surround this now. Then it would still flush it away. So you need to either use slabs or stairs. The old farm was also not really optimized when it came to the amount of stone blocks that got converted into moss with a chance of azalea generating on top of it. So we had one moss block, it would convert 3 stone, and now we have 6 with this layout here. So it's actually guaranteed if you bone meal this moss block here that all 6 stone blocks would be converted. Technically it's also possible they would spread even further, so up to a 7x7 area, but I didn't make this farm as bone meal efficient as possible. I wanted to have a compromise, and it's kind of convenient if no stone would be in the output. So that's why I restricted myself to using a 3x3 area. As you can see here, if you bone meal this moss here below, then mostly grass actually generates on top, so that's where a lot of the loss came from. So the next step, we just quickly waterlog the stairs in the middle and flush away the grass and the moss carpet. There's just a little problem. We need to do this in an alternating fashion. So as you can see here, this would work fine. We quickly activate the water dispensers, and a second time, the water would just flush to the side. And as you can see here, this was unaffected. If we put down some grass here, get nicely flushed away. Now you would think, why do I not trigger all of the dispensers at the same time? The reason is that the water would actually merge on the side, and the azalea does get flushed away, and also takes a bit longer until the water dissipates again. So in the final layout, we do it basically in 2 steps. First, we do one half here, and then just activate the second half from the other side. So this way we can flush those 3 blocks, and then the other 2 blocks later. In total, we actually got this layout, so it's a 2x9. Having the blocks here below the stone is also a requirement. As you can see here, if you don't have blocks below, the moss wouldn't spread. You have this TNT duping system at the top of the farm that gets rid of all the extra logs that are just getting pushed up. So we always generate 1 log we need to get rid of directly in front of the dispensers here. We would get 1 oak log. Somehow we need to get it out. First I thought we could maybe run a piston worm through that, but just pushing it up and blowing it up is easier. Okay, then we need a certain configuration at the bottom here. We had to squeeze everything in, so we need the option to push out the logs. So here we would get the rooted dirt where the stone is right now. So in order to push up, we can just pull out this sticky piston or normal block and push it back in. Then of course we also need to trigger the water dispenser in the middle somehow. The only way that I found that makes it possible is actually to pull out this sticky piston and then push up an observer. So this way we can also trigger the dispenser, to flush the water. We still had to squeeze in the moss block bone milling system. So the higher the moss block was, the better. So if you would move it a little bit lower, then fewer moss blocks would spread. Okay, another challenge was actually we also had to get rid of the moss carpets and other items would generate on top of the moss block, because we need an air block above this block in order to spread the moss up here. Okay, so that's why I got the piston that also triggers. Some of the items actually getting pushed over, land in the hopper, and even squeezed in a little composter that refeeds some of the bone meal into the system. So I got a command block running right now that gets rid of all the blocks above the farm, so we get a better view of what's going on. Okay, so now stone is getting pushed in. Now we bone meal the first time, flush. Bone meal the second time, flush again. Bone meal the third time, and then flush again. The reason why we don't bone meal all the 3 moss blocks at once is that there's actually a chance that more blocks from the second and third bone meal attempt would actually also cover some spots that we could flush away the first time. So that's why we got this sequence, which makes the farm, of course, a little bit slower, but a little bit more bone meal efficient. That's why we do this flushing 3 times. Okay, and then we just trigger those bone meal dispensers on the side like 10 times, and we have like almost 100% chance that the azalea bushes would grow into a tree. As you can see, we got 2 again, and it would very rarely happen that like 10 bone meal attempts are not enough. Okay, then we push in new stone. So we got this stone generator here on the side that I actually had to move down 2 blocks later because a lot of the leaves were catching some of the fire all the time, which was a little bit annoying. So that's why I got moved down a little bit. Okay, so we just push in 6 stone 3 times for 18 in total. Okay, let's see that again. There we go. It only takes 4.5 seconds to get all the stone back in. Okay, so the dirt is getting pushed out this side, is then fed into the blast chamber. In case of the mud farm that I still want to show, dirt is actually also converted into mud. There we go. Also, some of the items that we get here, so like the moss blocks and so on, are getting picked up by hopper minecarts, and those items are also converted into bone meal, which is also refed into the system. So that's why we have this item elevator here on the side, and here we got basically the bone meal storage. So all the bone meal coming from the farm has priority to be put into the chest, so we're just using the update order. Items from the top hopper have priority over items from the side hopper. Alright, so here would be a bone meal supply for the whole farm. So we got a chain of hoppers that would supply all the dispensers here with bone meal. There we go. And there's also a chain of hoppers going down that would supply the moss block dispensers, the ones that are under the moss block. Okay. Also needed some extra logic. So those pistons need to be triggered every time. Well, of course we have to alternate between activating the moss dispensers. That was a bit tricky with the redstone here, but it's working fine now. So the problem was if you bone meal this moss block, it would also generate carpet and so on top of the other moss block, which was quite annoying. The main reason I was actually working on the rooted dirt farm again was, of course, the introduction of the mud block and the possibility to convert rooted dirt into mud by just applying some water on it, which you can use a dispenser for. Alright, so here we got the final version of the fully automatic mud farm that doesn't require a player to do anything. Okay, so with one of those rooted dirt farms we can get 500 rooted dirt per hour, but only roughly a third of the time blocks could get potentially be moved. So I think we could get up to 18 rooted dirt in one cycle, which obviously almost never happens, but I still need to account for it. So the way I combine 3 of the farms is to just turn them on for a little offset. So first this farm runs, then we turn on the second one, and then the third one. So the farms are also identical, just had to make sure that they're all getting supplied with bone meal. So hopefully we can see it. So here now we get the first batch of rooted dirt, which was only 1 block this time, but technically could be 18. And it would take a lot longer to push in all the dirt. Then the second farm starts, and then the third farm starts. So this whole system would also not break if you get 18 dirt each time. It's accounted for, but of course we're not getting that much, so we're getting roughly 1500 rooted dirt per hour, which is then converted into mud. So in order to convert dirt into mud at potentially every 4 ticks, I made this system here using the water dispenser. So here we got the dispenser applying the bone meal. So the water bottles are stored down there. The bottles are immediately taken out with the hopper minecart. We have to use a hopper minecart because 1 hopper would be only half as fast as it's required. So that's why the hopper minecart also stands on 2 hoppers. Yeah, we feed the glass bottles back into the dispenser. We fill the glass bottles with water again. Hopper minecart picks it up, and yeah, we put back the the water bottles into the dropper, and yeah, this way we can theoretically handle up to 18,000 mud blocks per hour. Okay, just a side note. In case I wouldn't have the command block here and would just place the blocks myself, it's also a pretty good manual system. So you could also just place normal, you turn on normal dirt blocks instead. It would also be a really good basis for a normal dirt to mud converter. Oh, just need to make sure a block above, so I wouldn't place more blocks. Okay. If you're interested in this system, I might also make a quick tutorial about it, because yeah, you can just feed this into the same blast chamber. So technically, you could have your fully automatic mud farm and have this system on the side, which feeds into the same blast chamber, and you can alternate between using the 2. So the last thing we need to make this fully automatic is a bone meal supply, and that's why I got this cute little moss farm here on the side. Am I weird for saying it's cute? I think it's cute. You might remember the old version I had for the previous farm, which basically was 5 modules of this farm. Yeah, it was a lot larger. Okay, so let's turn it on. Good old moss-based bone meal farm. So we get bone meal coming from this water stream, which you just run over all the input chests for the bone meal for each farm. Okay, I can just follow the water stream. Supply for the second farm and the third farm here. Then I want to address one more thing. You might complain that we're actually wasting a lot of logs here that we could also use. There's definitely a possibility. It would actually also be rather simple. So you can imagine we push up the logs in rows here. So if we wouldn't blow them up, we would get them up here, and then it would be easy to just have another set of pistons to push them over into a second blast chamber, for example. So it would easily possible to also get 1500 logs per hour with the same farm. And it's also possible to maybe even get more logs, maybe harvest all of that, make a flying machine that pushes the logs over, blows them up, or blow them up on site. So there's multiple ways how we could also somehow use the logs. And if we would break some of the leaves here, then we might even get a couple more azalea and so on, which you could compost. So maybe we're getting actually close to self-sufficient farm. But for now, the focus was just on the mud farm. Definitely gonna revisit this later and try to get more logs out of the farm. Okay, so I really enjoyed making this farm. I just really love chaining different farms together to get a complex item. Can't wait until we can also convert the mud into clay and farm that as well from scratch. And then we can also break the clay, get terracotta out of it, or even glaze terracotta from scratch. Really looking forward to it. Actually, I don't really like playing Factorio that much, so in Minecraft I really like this aspect of the game. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave a world down in the description. Thanks guys for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.